Hey guys, welcome in. Thanks so much for joining, everyone. We're still seeing people come in, but I'm gonna start sharing my screen so you can see the presentation that we prepared. And we'll probably get started in a minute or two, just so I know it's like Thursday night, so um, yeah, so you can get to dinner and everything. So yeah, welcome. Okay, awesome. I think we can get started. So I'm gonna share my screen here so you guys can see. But again, welcome everyone to this webinar. So in this session, we're going to be focusing on how to use Heidi to streamline some of your documentation burden. We're super excited to work with Dietitians of Canada, so we're really, really excited about this partnership. And thanks so much for joining today as well. So today's session is going to focus on how the partnership is going to make your work easier, so save you time on documentation, and ultimately gives you more time to focus on the patient and also just other things in your life. So we know that the documentation burden is real from initial assessments to follow-ups to physician letters. And our goal is to lighten that load so you can focus more and bring full attention back to care. So the session is going to kind of focus on both practical examples and also highlight key workflows where Heidi can help. And also we'll leave plenty of time for questions at the end. So yeah, once again, welcome and thank you for being here. So in terms of the agenda, we're obviously going to start off with like a welcome, and we're going to go into what is Heidi, how to access Heidi, and then diving into the platform a bit more. So showing like a full demo of how Heidi can help with your nutrition notes, your ADIME notes, your follow-up notes. We'll focus a lot of our attention on templates, and that's actually the biggest toolkit that you're going to be using in Heidi, which will make sure that the note is super personalized to you. Then we're going to talk about some of the resources that we provide through this partnership, but also just as part of being a company. And we're going to go into some of the support materials that you can pull from. So to introduce a bit more about Heidi, we're the AI scribe of choice for allied health professionals in Canada. So you can see some of the partners we work with here. So yeah, we're kind of all across Canada from Yukon to Ontario, and we do about 2 million consults per week globally. So, what is Heidi? So, the idea is Heidi is kind of your care partner that's going to be alongside you from pre-visit to post-visit. So, obviously, we mainly say that we're an AI scribe, but before a patient even walks in, Heidi can kind of pull demographic labs and also weight trends, just whatever data you need from the referral letter or from the intake questionnaire. And it can already start drafting documents to help you prep for the visit. But let's say it's a pretty straightforward visit, you can also include those kind of documents as part of your visit. So then it takes all the intake information into account when it's transcribing the current session and also producing the note. So during the visit, obviously you just press transcribe on your phone or computer, and then Heidi is going to instantly begin capturing your consultation. And then after the visit, you can choose from versatile note templates from SOAP to ADIME, which is probably the most common template, but also initial nutrition assessment note or more kind of specialized notes if you have any of those like Reno visit, etc. And then after the visit, you can also generate all kind of documents. So for instance, you can generate a letter to the physician, so back to the referring physician, or you can create a patient handout, and even like meal plan. So it's all going to be tailored based on what happened in a session. So it's going to ensure that it's super personalized and also really accurate. So yeah, that's the idea of Heidi. And here, I know it can be a little overwhelming, but basically list out all of the main features we have. I will briefly talk through each just to kind of prime you for what Heidi can do, but definitely no pressure because we're going to get into a demo where I'm going to go through all of these. So this is mainly just to set the stage for the demo. So obviously, you'll be able to generate super specific documentation that are very tailored for dietitian workflows. So I've already talked about something there, but you can also fill forms on Heidi. And some of the form examples that are most common will probably be like disability, or some of the insurance forms can also be pretty annoying. So with Heidi, it takes a bit of setup, but gradually we're going to have more forms that are just available from the beginning. So then you can just click and then it's just going to fill. But right now, some of the sections might not be filled just in terms of how the document is structured. But the idea is you can do form filling on Heidi. You can also use voice command to insert different common phrases that you might use during your consult. And then I've mentioned like pre-charting, so you can pull in those. But you can also ask AI to create anything for you. So stuff like meal plans, goals, follow-up reports, etc. And Heidi is also built for like team workflow. So if you need a shared note to flow across different providers, Heidi is able to do that under our team tier. And to kind of set the ground for, where you can use Heidi and also what languages we support. So we work in all settings essentially because we have three main ways you can access Heidi, which I'll get into later. But whether you're offline, or you're doing telehealth, or you're in like inpatient or hospitals, you can use Heidi wherever you see patient. And then we support over 115 languages, so you'll be able to generate all different kind of documents in other languages instantly if you need to. Recently, we launched a personalization, so this is really cool because Heidi is going to learn your terminology, structure, and formatting over time. So it's going to sound more and more like you as you use it. To talk a little bit about data and security, so we are a compliance first company. So that's why we put all the kind of compliance badges here. But essentially, we're PIPEDA compliant, we're locally hosted in Canada, and also certified under these three certification here. It's just cybersecurity certification to make sure that your data is secure. So all data is de-identified and stored in Canadian servers. Once you delete a session off Heidi, it's not recoverable. So even if you ask our team, even if the court subpoena it, we are unable to retrieve them because we want you to have full control over your data. And then obviously no data is used for model training or any secondary use. If you do care a lot about the data security side of things and you want to get into it a bit more, you can visit our safety center, which will go into a lot of the different, commonly asked questions. But I have covered most of it here. Okay, great. So now we're actually going to get into how you can get set up with Heidi. So it's super quick and easy. You can access Heidi in three main ways. One is the mobile app. So we have our like mobile app in our iOS or Android app store. You can just download it and you can use it on a go. So obviously it's really helpful for situations where you need to move between different rooms. Or if you're offline, we also recommend the mobile app because it will ensure that the transcript stays intact even after you, like, even if you're offline. It's going to process a note after you get online. And then the second way would be to just go to your browser, type in HeidiHealth.com. You can use it from any device. And then once you log in, you can just start using it. Super simple. Lastly, we have the desktop app. So this is a app obviously on your computer. So it's going to allow you to conduct telehealth visits wearing headphones. And that's kind of why we built the app because a lot of dietitians or other providers do a lot of telehealth sessions. So they would need to wear headphones for HPI reasons. So that's why we have the desktop app to help with that. And you can download it at this link as well. Okay, so now we're actually going to jump into the platform and show you around Heidi. So I'm going to stop sharing here and I'm just going to share my screen to the Heidi platform. So here I'm just going to be using it on the browser. Cool. One second. Sorry, one second. Okay, perfect. So as you can see here, I'm just using it on my laptop. And you can see this is Heidi when I log in. So maybe to just very briefly talk about the few components here. So here you have the sidebar where you can, go into the settings, your template library, but essentially it's like the main navigation bar. Here you can see all your past sessions. And then the bigger kind of interface here is where you can see your current session. So whenever you're ready to start a new session with your client, you can just hit new session. And then you can see that it's gonna load a new session window over here. So if you're in a rush, you can really just start transcribing directly. So you just have to hit this. But let's say you want to change a language. So let's say you're having a session in French, then we're gonna go in here. You can select French Canada if you want to. It's currently in beta. But yeah, if you're doing a session in French, you would change the language here. You can also change the output language, which will just be the language the notes and documents are in. So you can have French um, as an input and then output in English if you want to. So this is where you can change the languages. You can also add in patient details. So let's say you have a new patient, you can create a new patient here. So maybe I'll just do that now. I'll use Jessica as an example. So I'm just gonna do Jessica T as my patient. So you can see here, let's say this is a new patient and I anticipate that I'm gonna have like a lot of session with this client. I'm just gonna click here and a new client or patient profile is gonna be created. So I'm ready. So I'm just gonna hit start transcribing. And here to talk a little bit about patient consent. So we do have this one-liner where you can just, ask your client, I may use digital transcription during this consult to help me take notes. Do you give consent to this? But you can also, of course, have intake forms that are implemented in your clinic or just as part of your private practice. So then they sign a form and they know all about Heidi beforehand. So we do have resources on intake forms, but if you're kind of just testing it out first, you can just use this. And then once you get patient consent, you can say, I have the patient consent. And then you're going to see the timer has started and the microphone, I can tell is also working because I have this, green wave that's sprinkling. So that's when I know the session's working. So I'll just have Heidi in the background here, and then I'm just going to talk to my client as usual. And I don't really have to speak in any specific way to Heidi because it's able to kind of into um, take into account like everything that's mentioned and also put it into the right context. If I want to double check, if my microphone is working, I can go into transcript and you're going to see that there's actually going to be a live transcription. So it's going to stream out in paragraphs, but that's one way you can check that the audio is working. And then in the context tab here is where you can put in information about the patient that you either don't want to say out loud or you want to include, some intake questionnaire or referral letter from another physician. You can just dump it in here and Heidi, after the session is done, is going to take into account like everything that's put into context and also everything that happened during the session. So for instance, here, I can actually attach a document. So I'm just going to click here. And I'm gonna select, I don't know if you guys can see this, but I'm gonna select a dietitian intake form. So here you can see after, I attach a document, it's gonna ask me whether it's a complex file. So a complex file is everything we define as like, if you use handwriting, checklists, or tables, it's considered a complex file. So If you want to upload a document for Heidi to take into account, but it's in handwriting, then you just tick this. But this one's pretty simple. It's just a PDF with, a printed document. So I'm just gonna save here, and it's gonna be integrated into the context window, as you can see here. So this is really helpful for, an initial assessment where I have some kind of intake information I need to pull in. And then, you can capture all the medical history, the lifestyle, the food patterns, the goals, the barriers for this initial assessment. And then after you are done, you'll hit stop transcribing. And here, it's going to prompt you to select a template. So you can see here, I have a bunch of dietitian templates, but I can just, have an ADIME note template for me. And then it's basically going to take into everything I've said in the session and the context to create a note. So the context document that I uploaded actually do have some information about the patient. So you can see, even though I said nothing in the session, it's still pulling in all that context information. So I'm just going to slowly go through this. Yeah, so you can see for the ones that I haven't mentioned, I just told Heidi to put it in TBD. So this is probably something that's going to look very similar to how you write your note. But when you first hop onto Heidi, what you'll actually be able to see is, um, let me just create a new session so I can show you guys. So when you select a template and when you're just first coming onto Heidi, you're gonna see, soap issues, soap note, HMP. So it might not be super specific to the dietitian workflow. And I'll show you more about how templates work so you can have super personalized templates for you. And right now here it says dermatologist just because my specialty is dermatologist. But if I go into here and I search dietitian, I'm able to kind of tailor my profile so that everything that's streamed out is specific to dietitian workflows. So I'm going to go back and I'm actually going to show you guys a fake demo that I did today. So I think it's this one. So it's basically a 2-minute conversation. It's a fake transcript. I have my context, which is empty right now. And I also have my note that's generated from the session. So you can see after the note is generated, um, so this is a pretty concise note. You can see it has the SMART goals, all of these different sections. So once it's done, you can do a few things. So let's say you don't like all the abbreviations in here. You want it to be like super legible and detailed. So then you can turn off abbreviation. You can put details to high. So this is one way you can customize a style to be more similar to how you would write a note. So that's some basic toggling you can do to make that more personalized. And yeah, you can see the output here. So you can see it's slightly more lengthy, and all the abbreviations are gone. So from here onwards, you can also create a downstream documentation. So let's say in the session I mentioned I'm gonna create a handout on lactose intolerance and alternatives. I can just go to create. So this is on the top right. And then on top, you'll see suggestions of documents you can create on Heidi. So for instance, here it suggests I develop a sample meal plan for cholesterol management. As I can create a handout. So I'm just going to start with that so you guys can see the output. Okay, so you can see it's generating a handout. Yep, so this is a pretty generic one. You can, of course, also ask Heidi to incorporate more information on what's discussed in the session, along with this lactose intolerance handout. And how you can do that, and I'll use another example here, is you can use the Ask AI bar at the bottom here. So for instance, if I want to generate a meal plan for this client, so Um, One thing that's really good that you can use on Heidi is like creating weekly meal plan based on their allergies, diet specification discussed, and also goals. So for instance, here, I'm just gonna paste in a prompt. So you can see I asked it to create a 7-day mock meal plan with 1,800 kcal, 100 grams of protein, high fiber. I stated the allergies. I told Heidi what style I wanted, and also budget friendly, include grocery list. So I'm just gonna ask Heidi to do this, and you're gonna see that it's gonna take a few seconds, but Heidi is gonna stream out a meal plan for me based on this. Okay, so you can see here, it's gonna be able to generate that. I know a lot of people already use, ChatGPT to do these kind of thing. But one thing that's good about Heidi is that it's fully HIPAA compliant and it's gonna take into all the contextual information from the transcript and the context, and then generate a note. But then the handout here is also going to be based on what's in the note. So it will just ensure that all the patient information is safe. Yeah. So you can see here it has a grocery list, but you can also specify that you want the grocery list to have the grams or like how many bags of pumpkin seeds. So you can be pretty specific about how you ask Heidi this question. So after this is done, I can just ask it to create a new tab. So what this means is you can see on top of the bar here, I have my note, I have my handout, but I also have my meal plan. So you can be pretty creative here with what you want to do. You might need to write a letter back to the referring physician, so you can also do that. And all these documents, so you can have like one session, but like 4 other documents that you might need. And it will just kind of generate that instantly, and you can read through it and send it off. So let's say I like this meal plan, I'm gonna send it to my client. I can either just send it directly as an email from the Heidi system, so it's gonna be encrypted, or I can export it as a document and then send it to my client from there. I see a few questions coming in, so I'll definitely cover it in the session. Okay, so this is on downstream documents creation. And I think this is a typical workflow you would do on Heidi. So you would start your session, you will fill in the context. So here I haven't filled in anything, but in the last session I did. You'll have your note, you'll, adjust it and then send it off, and you'll be able to create these downstream documentations. So let's say you're actually in a rush to include the context during the session. So the context tab is not just you have to do it during or before the session. You can also add it in after the session. So let's just say for attachment here, I'm gonna attach this documents again. So you're gonna see after I include the document and it processes that, I can go back to my note and you'll see that here is a button that says sync changes. So once I click this, it's what it's doing is reading all the information from the context and then integrating that into my current note. Yeah, so you're gonna see it's like a bit more detailed from before because it's integrating all of that information in. And in this session, I actually did a mention of diagnoses. So you can see here it actually just left that part empty because I didn't say it. So I don't want Heidi to make up stuff if I didn't mention it. So yeah, that's kind of how you would use Heidi for a typical workflow. So now I'm gonna just talk about how you would do a follow-up session to ensure that continuity. And then after that, I'm gonna go into a few more features. So diving deep into some of the features. But this is really just a starting point. You can do a lot more with Heidi. A lot of people start from here to kind of get used to it before they do more advanced use cases. But I just want to showcase everything in the session so you guys can always come back and revisit some of the things I mentioned if you find it helpful. So I'm actually going to do a follow-up session now. Um, so this is a session I did right after my intake note. So I'm pretending that a month has passed and I'm having another follow-up session with this client. So here, I know I didn't assign a patient, so here I'm just gonna say Jessica T. Um, and you're gonna see this is connected to this patient or client profile. So in my next session, I can then just select Jessica T. So this is a month later, and I can toggle it to see my session from before. So for instance, this one I know is from the past session, so I can look through what I've done with this client, and then I can come back to my current session. And in the context, I can actually include the information from the last session I had with a client. So I'm just gonna click here, and then it's actually just gonna take that into context. So all the different like medical history stuff is just gonna be automatically pulled in, so I don't have to like copy paste it over. And here you see this transcript is just because like I didn't actually transcribe my voice, so that's why it's just I just copied the transcript and then filling it into the context. So here, because I didn't start transcribing, I'm actually just gonna create a note from context. So the context is a transcript of the session and also the intake, the intake session I had with the patient. And here I'm gonna select follow-up consult template. And of course, I can also use like 8MP note, but I wanted to show you guys a different template, so that's why I'm using this one. Yeah, so you can see this is a pretty unique template. I like you can see all these different sections. It still follows a rough like 8-line format, but it has like different sections within that. So you can see it has the patient identity stuff, consent to record because I didn't mention it in this session, so it says no. Um, yeah, but you can kind of see like preview from last visit, confirm any changes, um, anthropometrics, symptoms. So this is a pretty unique use cases because you can also include checkboxes in Heidi. So for instance, if I mention like fatigue, then it's going to cross that off. But if I didn't mention diarrhea, then it's just going to leave it as is. You can also even ask Heidi to do calculations if you want to get into more advanced stuff. But you can see here, I'm just gonna stream through it. So this is a really, really specific template. And you can see the provider here is um, pretty detailed about the instruction it's given it. Okay, cool. So that's how you would do a follow-up session if you want to integrate the previous intake context. Now I'm just gonna talk through, I think, 3 or 4 main things. One is the template. So you're gonna see template even has its own section here in the navigation bar. And then I'm gonna talk through task and lastly, the memory setting in your settings. So first, go into template. So I know I talked a lot about template. I also kind of mentioned it before I even got into the demo, but a template is essentially what structures your note and documents. So for instance, for this ADIME note, um, this is the Heidi template in the background. So here I just went into my template library and I clicked into this ADIME template. So you're gonna see these little square brackets and also sometimes like round brackets. So what these are, so there's actually only 2 things you need to know about a Heidi template. First thing is a square bracket. So these are what we call placeholders. So this is any medical information or just regular information you want Heidi to pull in. So for instance, under reason for visit, I would write a square bracket and then say reason for visit or chief concern. Under supplement, I would ask it to list supplement and frequency consumed. So yeah, you can see how it plays out in the entire section. And then the second thing is the round bracket. So you can see it's often within a square bracket here, but there's actually no rules. So for instance, if I want the reason for visit to be in narrative format instead of bullet point, I can say write this section in narrative format using full sentences, no bullet point. And I can even be more specific, like using 2 to 3 sentences. So this is me kind of going in and like customizing the template. And for instance, here I can also say like if not mentioned, flag as anthropometrics, not mentioned. So it can even act as like a reminder for you to remember to mention it. Yeah, but then most of the time it's just like if not mentioned, then omit this section completely, or you can say leave this section empty. Yep, so these are the two main components of a template. First is a placeholder. These are the square brackets, and these are the information you want Heidi to pull in. Second is the round bracket instructions, and these are the stylistic instructions that's gonna change how your note looks. So you can even say like pull in information about the session from the context for your follow-up note template, for instance. So I won't get into it too much because I know it can be overwhelming. So this is just to introduce you to the power of templates. And if you really, really want to drill into it and have a super personalized note, this is going to help a lot. But obviously, as I mentioned before, we're also launching a personalization feature where it's going to automatically learn your style over time. But I'm just going to save this. And if you need kind of inspirations, you can always go into our template community. So these are where a lot of our dietitians and providers from different specialties create their templates and then upload it to the template community. So you can see a lot of examples here. And don't worry, it's not going to be automatically updated if you didn't get permission. But this is a great source for looking at the different kind of notes you can do on Heidi. So maybe to show one example here, we have this template from Erica, who's doing, who's working in community health services, and you can see this again ADIME template, but it's pretty specific to the Canadian use case, and you can even ask it to include ICD-10 codes. Perfect. So that's the first feature. So the template. Second is just a task list. This is super intuitive. It's just after each session, you're gonna see that a task tab often automatically comes up, and that's because I turned it on in my settings. But generally, I'm just going to a session. So here you can see your task list. So for this patient, it says schedule follow-up appointment to monitor progress and goals. So then I can track all my tasks in the task tab, and at the end of the day, I can just make sure everything's done, and then I'm good to go. So it relieves some of that kind of burden on you to remember all of these different things. Yeah, so I'll kind of scroll through it so you can see. And then the last thing is the memory tab. So it's under your settings. I can run through the entire setting, but it's quite a lot. So I'm just gonna focus a bit on memory because this is where you can either replace common misspellings or abbreviations, or you can insert a snippet, so kind of like macros. It's equivalent to like a shortcut where it will insert a custom pre-written piece of text by you just type slash and then it's gonna appear and then you can just click on it and it's gonna be automatically inserted into notes. So I have quite a lot of examples here, but just to show you what I can do. So I can have like a medical history one, a physical exam one, a safety plan. Yeah, but all these different kind of thing. So yeah, this is something to take advantage of as well if you get deeper into Heidi. So I think that was a lot. I'm gonna stop there in terms of my demo. We can always come back if you guys have any more specific questions. I do see quite a lot in the Q&A, so I'm actually just gonna address these before I move on. So in creation of a handout, will there be references included for the client to locate where info is sourced? I think you can ask Heidi to include references. It will do that for you. But it, like as you can see, it didn't automatically generate that. But because Heidi is trained on medical database, it should be pretty accurate. And then does it give a patient handout with everything we've reviewed at our appointment? Is this program included in the cost with the DC membership or are there additional costs? So yeah, the patient handout is if you create it within the session, it's always gonna include everything that's covered and take into context wherever it needs to. So right now, Heidi does have a free tier. The membership program we launched with DC, it's a 30% membership off our pro tier. It's a pretty significant discount, but it's kind of like our allied health pricing for now. That's only given to DC members. Okay. Moving on, if using the website version to transcribe, does the recording keep going if I'm on a different browser tab? Or do I need to stay on the Heidi tab for it to keep recording? So yeah, you can navigate between different browser tabs, go into your EMR. That's no problem. A lot of people do it that way. And then, yeah, can we edit the template to our customized format? So that's probably before I went into the template kind of deep dive. So yeah, it can be super, super customized to you. For a lot of people, it just take a bit of time to get used to the syntax, and it takes a bit of trial and error to see if you really like the style. But what you can do, and actually I'll show you here, is that you can even like one of the trick I think that I've heard from provider is that they would give ChatGPT the structure of how a Heidi template work, and then ask ChatGPT to create like a template based on that. So that's a pretty smart way to do it. That's if you're comfortable with ChatGPT kind of taking over the reign over there. But I can also show you we have a built-in template builder. So to create a template, you can either just write it from scratch, or which will be pretty hard. I think no one does that. But you can also go into the community, copy over a template, and then edit that. So to show how that works, I can go into the community. I'll actually use this meeting minutes template because this is one of the use case you can um, deploy as well, which is just taking meeting notes at your clinic. So I'm gonna add this to my library. And you're gonna see that it's gonna take a minute to import, actually take a few seconds, and then I can click into it and edit it however I want. So most people like this starting point, so then they just have to, tweak it a little bit and then it will sound pretty similar to them. But you can also create a template from scratch. And you can see there are a few ways to do it. You can start from an existing note. So you can copy in your, let's say, like follow-up console template. And it's going to be like a real note that you've written, and then it's going to create a template from there. But you can also just kind of talk to Heidi about how you want a template to be created. So here's an issue list one, but I'll actually copy in a more specific one for, dietitians. So I can ask it to like create an ADIME initial note for a referral with T2D and obesity. Include last 6 month weight trend, recent labs, PS, and 3 SMART goals. So obviously this is like way too specific. I can just say like this, and then I can ask it to create a template from here. Yeah, so you can really play around with it. And then once I hit this, you're gonna see it will have my assessment, my diagnoses, intervention, monitoring, and evaluation. So yeah, this is actually a decent template. So this is definitely one way you can get started and then tweak it from here. And I can just save this as a ADIME template and then save for later. Yeah, so this is how you would generate a template on Heidi. Yep, and I see a question on are our templates automatically included in the community templates, or can we keep them private? So yes, it's private by default. So I'm actually gonna share my screen again just to address that question. So you can see after I created it, the visibility is automatically gonna be set as only me. If I want to submit it to the community, I can click this, and then I can either highlight my contribution or not. And then once I hit save for later, it's gonna be like sent to a database of templates for our medical knowledge team to review. So they're gonna review the templates, and if it looks like a good one to share with a broader community, then we're gonna approve it and it's gonna appear in the community. So that's how the process works. We currently actually have a backlog of templates submitted for the community, which is honestly a good thing because it means a lot of people want to contribute. But because we have a backlog, the templates are not being approved really fast. But yeah, I think with our hiring, it will get better for sure. Okay, I'm just gonna exit and stop sharing here. And then how many people are included in the Together membership? So yeah, I can get into it like at the end of the session. So I'm actually gonna go back to the webinar. Okay, one second. So to kind of reiterate templates, this is what keeps your note structure consistent and also tailored to how you work. So we do have a like Dietitians of Canada page that we've put together for you guys. It's gonna have some of the templates we picked from the community, but we're also gonna expand it over time as you guys try it out and submit some templates to us. So that's super exciting. You can always go to the community and, even ask ChatGPT for help if you need a better way to create templates. We're actually launching a better template builder as well. So you can stay tuned for that. I think we already announced it, but it's not at least showing on my end yet. So it might not show up on your end, but it essentially will make it easier for you to build a template. And to talk about Heidi's impact a little bit, so just so you can look forward to what you'll be able to enjoy after adopting Heidi. So on average, our providers get 11 hours back per week, which is pretty significant, and also shows how much documentation burden there is for providers in the space. 97% report improved patient care. And this is generally judged by just like being more present in the room, being able to make more eye contact with the patient. I think it might not be as bad of a problem in the dietitian community, but in a lot of medical specialty, this is a huge problem. Um, but yeah, the client generally also feel more personalized and feel more close to the providers that way. A lot of people also report more comprehensive note. So this is a game changer for a lot of people because the notes are going to be more complete, accurate, and also ready sooner. And 93% report less burnout and higher job satisfaction, which is obviously what we made Heidi for. Like less burnout, clinician well-being is what we care about a lot. So yeah, this is kind of an overview on Heidi's impact. And then in terms of Resource Center, this is where we have a lot of the resources I've mentioned, like consent forms, like patient explainers on what Heidi is and how their data is stored. So just kind of showing all the safety pieces that I've talked about. There's also a clinician explainer. So if you want to share with other clinicians, that's one way to do it. But yeah, you can go to our Resource Center to find all these links. And yeah, that's kind of the entire presentation. I can talk a bit more about the different pricing tiers if you want to, because I know someone did ask questions about that. But now you can feel free to dump your question in Q&A. Thanks so much for the questions that came in already. I'm gonna make sure all of these are answered before the session ends in 15 minutes. Okay, so I'm actually gonna pull out the pricing just so I can show you guys how it works. It's not originally in the webinar, so I'm just give me a minute to find it. And then I know there's another question on will Heidi save the conversation and write the note later if you're working in a community without internet? Yeah. So without internet, 100% use the phone app because that will ensure the transcript is complete and intact so you don't lose your session. So yeah, use your phone, and then you can, because it's real time synced across a different platform, you can, let's say you spend a working in a community, and then you need to go back to your like session and finish up the node, transfer it to the EMR. You can do that on your laptop later. So yeah, it can definitely save the conversation and write the note later if you needed to. And then the audio recording, yeah, it's gonna be deleted right after it's transcribed. So there's no audio recording being stored at all. It's doing a live transcription, so there's actually like not any audio being recorded um, for the entire session at any point. And then I'll show an example of a consent form in a moment after I talk through the pricing. So yeah, obviously under this DC partnership, we're super excited to have um, the 30% off for both tiers. So I'm gonna show here on my screen, it's gonna be the original pricing, so the pricing before discount, and it's per provider. So you can see here, we do have an entirely free tier. And what you're able to do there is transcribe the session and create like a basic soap note. But you can't really customize a template or use any kind of customized templates. And any kind of like creating downstream documents like patient handouts and patient explainer or referral letter, those are generally pro actions. So that will require a pro to do. So pro is going to be $7.99 per year per provider. Under the DC membership, it's going to be 30% off. So I won't do the calculation here. I think it's around 500 something. And yeah, you'll be able to make unlimited custom template and use the community templates as well. And you can also use ASCII for anything you need from the session. So Together tier is a team tier that we have. It's going to include a few more things. So the biggest thing that a lot of people kind of value from the Together tier is the team sharing capabilities. So you can share templates. So if you have an admin and you have a group of, let's say, dietitians, you'll be able to share the template across all the providers to kind of ensure consistency of notes. But you can also share sessions with other people if you want. And then you're going to have complimentary admin accounts. So if you've had assistant that are not doing sessions, but they're helping with some of the documents prep or generating referral letters, all of that, they're able to get Heidi for free. And because they're just considered an admin account, they're not doing sessions on Heidi. And then lastly, it's most of our support stuff. So you get support for template building from our medical knowledge team, and you also get customer success team to help you with training and onboarding. So generally with multidisciplinary group, a lot of people go for a Together tier because they need a lot of that team functionalities and also more of that support to build out all the templates across different specialties. But yeah, I think this one, I think this one is also 30% off under the membership. And yeah, you can contact our sales team if you want to pursue the Together tier. So for Pro, we do offer monthly payment schedule. For Together, we have quarterly options, but for that, you need to contact our sales team and then they'll be able to set it up for you. So now I'm going to show an example of consent form. Just 1 second. So I'm going to go into our main website. And there's actually also a Dietitians of Canada Google site that we set up. So I'm gonna show you guys that as well. Just give me 1 second while I find it. Okay, perfect. So I'm gonna share. Okay, 1 second. Yep, so I'm sharing my Chrome again. This is a landing page we've made for Dietitians of Canada members. It's gonna include, all the benefits if you need to reference at any point. We're gonna upload the webinar recording here as well, and also include more videos as the partnership evolves. In the template section here is where you can see some of the templates we put in for a lot of dietitian use cases. And then in the resources section, here is where you can go into our resource center. So it's going to take you to our website and you can download the consent form. So because of like compliance issue, before we had like a Google Drive, but we decided it's just safer for it to be downloaded. So that's why you'll be able to download the zip file and then find the best one for you. So I'm gonna wait for it to process and then show an example. So it's still expanding. Okay, perfect. Let me just stop sharing and reshare. So we have both single sign and dual sign option. I'm gonna show a dual sign option. So it's a pretty bare bone template, but it basically outlines a basic consent format that you can follow. And if you want more kind of information like flyers on patient handout, you can also find that here as well. But yeah, this is just saying before we proceed, I want to inform you about how we document this. And if you want more information, you can always go to the patient explainer, which is a sheet that explains what Heidi is to patient. So it's going to be like patient face on compliance and data security. So I'm going to open that as well so you guys can see. Okay, just one second. So yeah, here we have a bunch of examples. I'm not showing my full screen, so that's why you can't see the folder. But here I'm gonna share this example. So yeah, this is a Canada patient explainer. You can see it will talk through, do I have to give consent? Who has access to my information? Data sovereignty, how is my data used? Use or recording. So covers some of the most commonly asked questions that you're gonna run into. So we also recommend if you just want to stick a paper in your clinic so people can read through it, that's definitely helpful to have. Okay, I think that's all the questions. I don't think I missed any. Yeah, feel free. I'm gonna hang around for 5 more minutes. So yeah, definitely let me know if you have any questions. If not, and something comes up later, you can always contact our support team to help you get set up. Okay, amazing. Thank you guys for coming. Yeah, and the session is recorded, so we'll make sure it's gonna be sent back to the registrants, and also we'll include the site as well, just so you can access some of the links. But yeah, otherwise, it's lovely to meet you all. Okay, great. I don't think I see any questions, so thanks so much for coming, everyone. Once again, we're super excited about this partnership, so definitely feel free to reach out if you have any questions. But otherwise, lovely to meet you all, and bye for now.